A seeker had been walking for 43 days through wilderness and dust to ask one question that burned inside him like fever. How do I silence my mind forever? The seeker's mind had become a prison with no walls. Every attempt to think clearly spawned 3 more thoughts. Every effort to find peace created more noise. Sleep brought no rest, just dreams that continued the same endless conversation with himself. Waking brought no clarity, just the resumption of a dialogue that had no beginning and promised no end. He had tried everything. Mantras that became mechanical, breathing techniques that turned into another task for the mind to obsess over. Silence retreats where the quiet only amplified the internal screaming. 43 days ago, he had heard a single sentence that changed everything. There is one who knows how to stop trying. The name was Ramana Maharshi, not a teacher who gave methods, not a guru who prescribed practices, but someone who understood the very structure of the mind's trap and how to step out of it without effort. The seeker had walked since that moment, not toward a destination, but away from the unbearable weight of his own thoughts. This was not hope that kept him moving. It was desperation dressed as determination. When he finally arrived, Ramana was sitting in a clearing where 3 paths converged. Not near water, not in a temple, just open ground where travelers passed without stopping. The seeker collapsed to his knees, body folding forward until his forehead pressed against earth, still warm from the day's heat. Ramana's gaze found him immediately, not scanning his appearance or measuring his devotion. His eyes moved past the surface, past the dust-covered clothes, past the trembling hands, and settled on something deeper, the way you might look through a window into an empty room. The seeker's voice came out cracked and small. "Revered Master, my mind is destroying me. Every thought spawns 10 more. Every silence fills with noise. I have tried everything. Nothing works. Please help me. How do I silence my mind forever?" Ramana's expression did not change. No sympathy, no judgment, just a kind of neutral clarity that made the seeker feel both seen and invisible at the same time. Ramana gestured to the space beside him. The seeker moved forward, legs unsteady, and sat. His spine straightened instinctively. Something in the presence of stillness demanded it. Ramana said, "You want to silence your mind. First, bring it here. Show it to me." The seeker's breath stopped. His hands lifted, then fell. The request was impossible. The seeker said, "Master, I cannot show you the mind. It has no form. It is just thoughts, endless thoughts, fears, memories, plans. This is what my mind is." Ramana reached down and picked up a handful of dust. He held it in his open palm, then blew gently. The dust scattered into the air, particles catching the last light of day, then disappearing. Ramana asked, "Where did the dust go?" The seeker replied, "It dispersed, Master, into the air." Ramana asked, "And the air, is it disturbed?" The seeker hesitated, then said, "No, the air remains as it was." Ramana nodded slowly. "You believe your mind is solid, a thing you carry, a burden you must put down. But what if it is more like this dust, appearing, dispersing, and the space that holds it, unchanged?" The seeker said, "But Master, my thoughts never disperse. They multiply. They never end." Ramana looked at him with something close to compassion. "Because you gather them, you name them, you claim them as yours, you feed them your attention, and attention is the only food thoughts need to survive." The seeker's eyes dropped. Recognition and frustration warred in his chest. Ramana said quietly, "Look at me." The seeker lifted his head. Their eyes met. Ramana asked, "Right now, are you thinking?" The seeker opened his mouth, then paused. Thoughts were there, but something else was watching them. Ramana said, in that pause, before you could answer, the mind became quiet. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped following thoughts and simply noticed them. Your problem is not that thoughts arise. Your problem is that you believe you are the one thinking them. The seeker asked, "Then how do I stop identifying with them? What technique do I use?" Ramana said, "You are still looking for something to do, but the effort itself is the problem." Ramana continued, "When you sleep deeply, without dreams, where is your mind?" The seeker said, "It is gone." Quiet. Ramana asked, "And when you wake, even if you do not remember the sleep itself, you know that you slept. You know rest happened. Who knows this?" The seeker paused. Something knows, even without memory of it. Ramana nodded. The same thing happens when you are awake, when you are completely absorbed in something, watching a flame, listening to rain. Where are your thoughts in that moment? The seeker said, "They are not there. There is only the watching." Ramana said, "Yet you are still present, still aware." So, something in you exists before thoughts, during thoughts, after thoughts. Something that watches the mind appear and disappear. The seeker sat with the question. His mind reached for an answer, but every answer was just another thought. Ramana said, "Thoughts are not your enemy. They are simply movements, like breath, like sounds appearing and fading. The problem is the claim. This thought is mine. This fear is mine." The seeker whispered, "But they feel so real." Ramana said, "Feelings are real, but the story you tell about them, that is where the suffering multiplies." He paused. Ramana continued, "You cannot silence the mind forever. The mind is designed to move, but you can stop believing that every movement defines who you are." The seeker whispered, "Then what is true silence?" Ramana answered, "Silence is what remains when you stop interfering, when you stop clinging, when you stop calling thoughts mine." The seeker asked, "If I cannot stop the mind, and I should not fight the mind, what do I do?" Ramana said, "You do nothing. You simply notice, not with effort, just natural awareness, the way you are aware of these words right now." The seeker asked, "But how do I notice without getting pulled in?" Ramana said, "It is like space. Can space be pulled into an object that appears within it?" The seeker said, "No. Space holds the object, but remains unchanged." Ramana nodded. "You are that space. Thoughts appear in you. Emotions appear in you. But you are not any of them. You are what remains when they all disappear." The seeker's eyes closed, breath moving, heartbeat pulsing, thoughts rising and falling. And for the first time, he noticed something else. Something that was not rising or falling. Something simply present, aware, still, untouched. Ramana said, "The mind moves. This is its nature. But you, the awareness in which thoughts appear, you do not come or go." The seeker's eyes opened slowly. Something fundamental had shifted, not in what he saw, but in who was seeing. The seeker whispered, "The mind will always move, but I am not the movement." Ramana nodded. "Now you are beginning to see." Ramana leaned closer. "The awareness in you, the one that sees thoughts but is never touched by them. That is silence. That is what you truly are. The seeker's breath lengthened. His shoulders dropped. His mind was still moving, thoughts still appearing, dissolving. But he was no longer identified with the movement. Ramana said, "The mind is not a problem. Your belief that you are the mind, that is the only problem." He gestured to the empty space around them. When the wave knows it is water, it stops fearing the rise and fall. When you know you are not the mind, silence appears, not as something found, but as what remains when you stop claiming the movement. The seeker sat, not forcing stillness, but resting as the stillness that had been there all along. The stillness of something that has never moved, something that cannot be disturbed. Wetness on his cheeks, not tears of sadness, just release. The body responding to a truth it recognized before the mind could name it. The seeker said, "Master, I came seeking a method, but you have given me no practice, no technique." Ramana said, "Because there is nothing to practice. The effort to become silent creates more noise. The struggle to be free creates more bondage." He continued, "When you try to silence the mind, you create a doer, someone who must accomplish something. And that doer is just another thought claiming to be you." The seeker asked, "So, I simply remain aware?" Ramana answered, "You simply remain as you are, not with effort. You simply notice what is already noticing. You rest as what is already at rest." The seeker's head moved slowly. Recognition. There was no question left. Not because all questions were answered, but because the questioner had dissolved. He bowed. This time, not from exhaustion, from gratitude for what had been revealed as always present. His mind was still moving, thoughts still appearing like birds crossing an empty sky. But he was no longer the birds. He was the sky itself. Ramana spoke one last time. "Thoughts will return. The mind will speak. But you now know what you are. Not the movements, but the stillness in which all movement occurs." That recognition is freedom. The seeker rose and turned toward the path. His mind was still moving, thoughts still appearing and disappearing. But he had found what never moves, what witnesses all movement. He understood now. Silence is not the absence of noise. It is the absence of the one who claims the noise as theirs. He is not the thoughts. He is the awareness in which thoughts appear. He is not the seeker. He is what the seeker was seeking. Stop fighting what appears. Stop claiming what passes. Simply rest as what you are. That is silence. That is what you have always been.